This tractor is a 1952 Ford 8N side mount distributor, 6 volts. Got a problem with water getting into the cylinders and running out the radiator. It actually, in the past, I'll show you some history on that. But what I suspect is happening now is I'm getting compression gases into the cooling system, which is causing, you know, the leak to stay open. I know there's a leak there because I'm getting that in there. And I'll show you the evidence I have to support compression gases getting in through the head into the radiator, which can cause you issues. So I'm gonna look inside the radiator. I've got it a little fuller than it needs to be so I can demonstrate what's going on. What you're gonna see here is you're gonna notice bubbles coming up through the radiator neck that's coming from the upper radiator hose from the engine. Now, the engine's been running about 30 minutes at about 1,000 RPMs. It's nice and warmed up, but you'll see the level come up and you'll see bubbles come through. You should not have any bubbles in your system once it gets warmed up. All the air pockets should be cleared out. There's a slight oily residue on top of the fluid. I don't know if you can see that in here very well, but you can definitely see some bubbles coming through. That's actually compression gases coming out of one of the cylinders up into the engine. Now, a little bit of history. I'm going to zoom in real close to the engine head and show you a bolt. So I'm just going to let it zoom in here. If you notice that particular head bolt, I'm going to turn the tractor down a little bit since I've demonstrated the other part. That one head bolt had a water leak around it, from what I could tell when I first got it about 2 years ago from the previous owner. I was having a problem with the radiator leaking. Took it off, took it to a shop to fix it. It was so old, it was leaking and they couldn't fix it. So I got a new radiator. Put the new radiator in, and I bought a cap to go with that radiator, but I got them from 2 different places. And the radiator cap I bought seemed a little tight. It was kind of odd. Once I put on the tractor and got it warmed up good, it seemed like everything was working okay, so I went out and plowed with it a little bit. Made about 3 turns with the harrows, and I blew out the radiator. And I'm going to show you the radiator that I blew out and a little bit more information about that. So here's the radiator that blew up. And what happened was, if you look on the front, it looks like someone shot a hole in it with about a 30 caliber round. But if you look close inside it, you can see there's a stud back in there, a rivet, where this thing had actually popped loose. If I get from the side, you can see that it's swollen up at the top. See, the neck is a little bit, if I stand it up straight, the neck is actually leaning back a little bit because the whole top had actually swollen up. There's a good picture of it. So I figured I had a problem. I thought it was possibly a reverse thermostat or something, or a water pump, but the water pump pulls from the bottom. It doesn't put at the top. So long story was, that particular bolt that I just showed you on here was, the block was damaged. The previous owner or somebody had gone in and put in some kind of Bondo-like material in there to fix it, put a helicoil in, but that bolt was not able to be torqued down to, you know, very tight. So it was leaking through the head at that point. Now I've got the head gasket that I pulled off when I did that repair, and the bolt hole, the bolt was here. It was this bolt on this point here. You don't see any coming in from the top, but if you look at the bottom of it, you can see where it looks like there was a little bit of let me get closer to it here. A little bit of blow by right in here. So those look like there might be some other suspicious spots. I'm not sure. That one looks questionable too, as does this one. But anyway, so I replaced it with a nice brand new Velcro gasket. Put that on there and thought everything was fixed. Oh, well, by the way, I fixed the block. I got a friend of mine who works on vehicles. He came over and he used something like JB Weld, but it was a little different filler. He filled in the gap. We put in a key zert, put the thing in. The bolt now tightens down good and snug. Everything's great and everything's happy, but it's still leaking even after I put the new head gasket on and tightened everything back down to specs. And now what I think has happened is, once I blew the radiator out, when all the water released out of it, while it was good and hot, the head got extremely hot, and I think it warped the head. So I don't know that for sure yet. At this point, I'm just diagnosing my problem. But the reason the thing blew out was because the cap was too tight on the radiator. So there's a little relief point here. If the pressure builds up so high, it'll push the cap up, spring the cap up, and release any pressure out of there. The cap I had on here was not the right cap, or the neck was wrong. Anyway, the cap seated and compressed the spring all the way when it was completely down. The pressure couldn't release. It built up inside the radiator, and surprisingly, the belts didn't blow, the radiator did. So I've got to take it apart, go get it machined, and see if I can get it back on and repaired without having to go put too much extra money into it. But that's the story I have. I hope the information I've provided helps someone else, and if you've got any advice on what I may be doing wrong, I would appreciate it. Thanks. Look forward to comments.